Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Ujirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Neshtiki. So this morning we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 18, verses 31 to 42. What's the name of the chapter? What's the name of the chapter? Siti vows to kill King Indra. This chapter has very beautiful instructions, very powerful statements and powerful instructions. So today we will go through verses 31 to 42. So first we will read verse 42, Sanskrit and translation, and then we can discuss on the previous verses. Verse 42.
Text 31.
No, wait. So let's open verse 42. Nahi kaschit priya strinam agyasa swashishashtamam patim putram bhrataram va gnantyarthe ghatayanti cha nahi kaschit priya strinam agyasa swashishatmanam patim putram bhrataram va gnantyarthe ghatayanti cha. Please repeat. Nahi kaschit priya strina patim putram bhrataram va gnantyarthe ghatayanti cha nahi kaschit priya strina agyasa swashishatmanam ghatayanti cha. Agyasa swashishatmanam patim putram bhrataram va hantyarthe ghatayanti cha. Synonyms together. Na, not. He, certainly. Kaschit, anyone. Priyaha, dear. Strinam, to women. Agyasa, actually. Swa ashisha, for their own interest. Atmanam, most dear. Patim, husband. Putram, son. Bhrataram, brother. Va, or Gnanti, they kill. Arthi, for their own interests. Ghatayanti, cause to be killed. Cha, also. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Together, to satisfy their own interests, women deal with men as if the men were most dear to them, but no one is actually dear to them. Women are supposed to be very saintly, but for their own interests, they can kill even their husbands, sons, or brothers, or cause them to be killed by others. Kashyapa Muni is coming in hot, right at the get-go. So before we go on to the purport, let's stay at the translation. So here we see Kashyapa Muni expressing certain feelings or certain words for women as a whole, gender or community. And we are simply right now seeing his hateful words, but these powerful, strong, sharp words. But what happened? What series of events led to this expression? It's like when we read the story of Ritrasur, the demon, who right in the middle of battlefield starts offering prayers to Krishna, beautiful prayers, and everyone is shocked. How could such a demon offer such beautiful prayers to Krishna? And similarly, we see a learned sage like Kashyapa Muni is out of nowhere expressing such strong words for someone, and not just for one person, but for a whole group of people. So what led to this event is what we will now go through. Before we read the purport, we will read verses 31 to 41, and then we will expand on them. So let's go to text 31 onwards, and we can take turns and read, and then in between the texts we will make some comments. But even before that, can anyone give a very brief background of what's going on? It's been a few days, yeah. We had some festivals. Well, here we are starting with Kashyapa offers benedictions to Devahuti, to Diti. But before that, if very briefly, what happened?
So Diti's upset because her sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, got killed by Lord Vishnu, and she's thinking that Indra basically just manipulated Lord Vishnu to do his bidding. So she's not blaming Lord Vishnu, she's blaming Lord Indra. Mm-hmm. So then she wants to have a son who will kill Indra. Mm-hmm. So she approaches Kashyapa Muni for the blessing that she can have a son that will kill Indra. And so Kashyapa, he's like, oh no, this is not good. But she's being kind of emotional. So anyways, he gives her a process which is basically practically the process of bhakti, knowing that when she performs that, she's going to give up her desire to kill Indra, and she's going to become a pure devotee and forgive him.
Mm. Perfect, yeah. Thank you. Yes, that's basically where we are. Diti is in a very vengeful state of mind because her two dear sons, who happen to be demons, were killed because of Indra. Or at least she blames Indra to be the cause. And she wants to take revenge and kill Indra, for which she knows her very qualified, potent husband is the only person who can provide her with a son strong enough to kill Indra. And so in order to extract that desire or to extract that benediction from her husband, she manipulates him. How does she manipulate him? She's extra sweet, extra nice, extra soft, and serves him with all her efforts, is extremely humble, and is giving him this deep perception of deep love for him, which is all actually an artificial act. But she's doing this just so that she can please him, to give her a son strong enough to kill Indra. And so we see that obviously Kashyapa Muni is a very learned and sage, very learned scholar, but being a man, he is victim to lust, and he falls victim to this sweet artificial behavior of his partner, and being extremely pleased with her. When we are in a state of extreme joy, we make promises that we shouldn't make. And so in that state of extreme joy and pleasure, he makes a promise to his wife and offers her a free boon, a benediction. And then immediately jumping at that opportunity, Diti requests for a son who can kill Indra. So we will see what happens. Can someone read 31?
Text 31. O my dear one, the most powerful sage Kashyapa, being extremely pleased by the mild behavior of his wife, Diti, smiled and spoke to her as follows.
Kasyapa Muni said, O beautiful woman, O irreproachable lady, since I am very much pleased by your behavior, you may ask me for any benediction you want. If a husband is pleased, what desires are difficult for his wife to obtain either in this world or the next?
text, text 33 and 34. A husband is the supreme demigod for a woman, the supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Vasudeva. The husband of the goddess of fortune is situated in everyone's heart and is worshipped through the various names and forms of the demigods by fruitive workers. Similarly, a husband represents the Lord as the object of worship for a woman.
Let's pause there for a second. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruvai Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adigaur Bhakta Vrind Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktaki Namami Bhakta Shaktika. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that verse, it appears from this verse that there is a certain supremacy being established about the position of men, or about the position of husbands, that the husband should be worshipped as God, and he is the supreme demigod for his wife, and so on. So this may cause some misunderstanding, and Srila Prabhupada very beautifully explains in the purport what this means. He writes, first he quotes this verse from Bhagavad Gita 9:23. He says, "Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding." So this is a verse that Krishna says about demigod worship, that whoever worships demigods or other, living beings, is worshipping Krishna ultimately, but in a wrong way. But Krishna accepts that offering as well. So Srila Prabhupada first establishes this verse for this particular text. And then he goes on to say, one who is not in direct touch with the Supreme Lord and cannot conceive of the exalted position of the Lord is sometimes advised to worship the demigods as various parts of the Lord. So one who does not have a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna, one who does not have that attachment to Krishna, they are advised to at least come a step down and worship the demigods. Bless you. Come a step down and worship the demigods, so that they can at least start their journey of sacrifice somewhere. They can at least start their journey of accepting authority, of sacrificing something, worshipping someone. And then Krishna indirectly accepts that. And so then Srila Prabhupada writes, if women who are usually very much attached to their husbands worship their husbands as representatives of Vasudeva, the women benefit, just as Ajamil benefited by calling for Narayan, his son. Ajamil was concerned with his son, but because of his attachment to the name of Narayan, he attained salvation simply by chanting that name. So the point here that Srila Prabhupada makes is very, very clear. He says that if one must be attached, because everyone will be attached, right? And so in this context, if a woman should be attached to her husband, and if she is not as attached to Krishna directly, then for her, it becomes an opportunity for her spiritual growth. If she can look at the husband as a representative of Krishna and then offer service based on that mindset, that this is a representative of Krishna. Just as people who are not directly attached to Krishna worship the demigods, or as Ajamil was not really attached to Krishna, he was attached to his son. But because there was an aspect of Krishna in the name of his son, he was liberated. So similarly, if the husband is a devotee, ideally, or in this case, if either of the partner is a devotee, and the other partner is really attached to their spouse, and if they can render service to their partner, thinking that this is a representative of God, let me take care of them, or even without that thought, just out of attachment, there is some hope. Srila Prabhupada also writes, if husband and wife are attached to one another for advancement in Krishna consciousness, their relationship of cooperation is very effective for such advancement. Mm-hmm.
So what if one of the spouses is devotee, okay, and then the husband does not like it, and then the husband decides to divorce the wife? In that case?
Divorce because they are a devotee?
And that too.
Well, if there are other factors because of which the divorce is happening, then I don't, there's so much more detail there, but if it is because the partner is a devotee, we have many such stories in our texts where one person is a great devotee but the partner is not, and the teachers advise them that in their household life they should perform like an actor, not appear completely detached, not appear completely that this is my path, this is what I'll do. But in the household life, they're supposed to play a role of a very loving husband or a very loving wife, and give that perception of love and care to their spouse, so that they don't have any doubt that this path of bhakti or this spiritual path is actually pulling my spouse away from me. So if they receive that perception of security and care that this person is still dedicated to me, and even if we don't feel that way, but if we can play a role of doing that in the household life for the sake of protecting the grihastha ashram, for the sake of protecting the household life, if we can play that role, then we can probably internally, but we keep feeding our aspirations, keep feeding our, keep doing our sadhana as much as we can, but just externally play a role of a very perfect, ideal household person dedicated to the family. I don't know if that makes sense. That is something that has come time and again in our stories, and that is what was advised to such people in such circumstances. Yes, please. Yeah, we can have more discussion towards the end where we take question answers. But thank you for asking. It's a very relevant question. So yes, Srila Prabhupada in the end of the purport to this verse, he writes, if husband and wife are attached to one another for advancement in Krishna consciousness, their relationship of cooperation is very effective for such advancement. Because then the relationship transforms not only to one-sided worship, but to a mutual cooperation for mutual growth and advancement towards a common goal. Next verses. Who's next?
My dear wife, whose body is so beautiful, your waist being thin, a conscientious wife should be chaste and should abide by the orders of her husband. She should very devoutly worship her husband as a representative of Vasudeva.
My dear gentle wife, because you have worshipped me with great devotion, considering me a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I shall reward you by fulfilling your desires, which are unobtainable. Thank you for an unchaste wife.
Now, one thing to notice in both these verses is if we go to verse 35, the last sentence is, devoutly worship her husband as a representative of Vasudev. And then text 36, again, considering me a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What's interesting is both these statements are not in the Sanskrit. They are kind of implied, but Srila Prabhupada very specifically emphasizes in both these verses the statement representative of Vasudev, because it is so, so important to understand that. Because in this world, we can see so many couples who are blindly attached to one another and are worshipping and serving one another. But are they going to Godhead just because they are serving and worshipping one another? This aspect that serve your partner as a representative of Vasudev, that shift in mindset and that vision of seeing your partner as a part of Krishna, a devotee of Krishna, an opportunity to serve Krishna through serving your partner. This is such a beautiful concept, and that is, this one shift in mindset is what can make a big change in our spiritual life. So Srila Prabhupada mentions this very specifically. Yes, Mother Prabhupada Priya.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I feel like it's not enough to just see the person as a representative of Vasudev. Like, they have to be a representative of Vasudev. In other words, they have to be following the teachings of Vasudev and, living the life that Vasudev would have them live. And, otherwise, if you just, my husband's a representative of God, but then he does all kinds of nonsense, then it's not really going to do the job. Like your worship of that person is not going to be so beneficial.
Yeah.
So there's that verse, Guru nasasyat swajano nasasyat, that one shouldn't become a husband or a mother or a father or a guru if one can't deliver one's dependence. So,
that's true. That's very true. That's the ideal situation where the partner can be or is a devotee of Krishna. That is the qualification for being a partner in the first place, or being a husband in the first place especially, that they should be completely qualified as a devotee of Krishna. If the partner is in a fallen condition, doing sinful activities, it's very difficult. That actually makes the grounds for separation sometimes. But I think what is also important to note is that there may be situations or marriages where two people come together and one develops a spiritual attitude, but the other does not. But they are not necessarily bad people, but they are just not a devotee, and they are materialistic people. And so still the person who has developed that spiritual attitude, they will have to at times render service to their partner, do things for their partner. So for them, if they can still have that vision that no matter what, my partner is still a representative of Krishna, even if they're not following that, ultimately they are a part and parcel of Krishna. And with that thought, if they do what they do, then even that helps in such situations. But ideally, yes, we understand that the qualification should be that the partner must be a devotee, advanced. So, next, please.
Diti replied, "O my husband, O great soul, I have now lost my sons. If you want to give me a benediction, I ask you for an immortal son who can kill Indra. I pray for this because Indra, with the help of Vishnu, has killed my two sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu."
So Diti doesn't waste any time. As soon as Kashyapa Muni offers the benediction, she jumps at the opportunity, and no jumping, no jumping around the bush, no beating around the bush, just straight to the point. I want a son who can kill Indra. Next, please.
With all respect, I'd rather someone else read. I'm not too comfortable with this.
Text 38. Upon hearing Diti's request, Kashyapa Muni was very much aggrieved. Alas, he lamented, now I face the danger of the impious act of killing Indra.
Kashyapa Muni was deeply aggrieved and deeply hurt by this. Imagine a situation, we can see this in our world today as well, and may have happened in our lives at some point, where we were used for what we have or what we can provide by someone, maybe a lover, maybe a friend, maybe a family member, relative, sometimes maybe a devotees, where we were given a perception of care and perception of love simply to at some point be exploited by that person and to realize that that person doesn't really care about you. So this is the situation of Kashyapa Muni, where he was used by Diti. He was kind of cheated because Diti put on this artificial act of being deeply attached and loving to her husband just because she had this material desire of killing her stepson, Indra. Not her stepson, but her sister's son. Nephew, sorry. Yes, her nephew, Indra. Exactly. And not only being exploited and used by someone, but being asked to kill your own son, Kashyapa Muni. All right. So just imagine how heartbreaking that could be. Next, please.
Kashyapa Muni thought, alas, I have now become too attached to material enjoyment. Taking advantage of this, my mind has been attracted by the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of a woman, my wife. Therefore, I am surely a wretched person who will glide down toward hell.
So this verse, can we go back up a little? This verse needs to be really looked at very carefully. Kashyapa Muni is not lamenting simply his attachment to his wife, or simply his attachment to a woman who is his wife. He is lamenting his attachment for material enjoyment. He says, I have now become too attached to material enjoyment. Taking advantage of this, my mind has been attracted by the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of a woman. So first, he was attached to the idea of enjoying his senses. And because of that, his mind saw an object for that enjoyment in his wife. And so this is so beautifully explained that because attachment to your partner is very natural, it will happen and it should happen. And only because of that can we expect any form of growth and flourishment in grihastha life, right? You have to be somewhat attached to your partner. So he's not simply lamenting that he's attached to his wife. He's lamenting that he saw his wife as an object of sense enjoyment rather than an object of, or rather than as a representative of Krishna, whom he can serve and whom he can spend a life with. And so this also shows a very beautiful aspect of conflict resolution. When you have a conflict, Kashyapa Muni, being a great sage, is introspecting first. He is not jumping to react or to accuse. His very first thought is, I am so fallen. I am attached to material enjoyment. This is my fault. So his very first thought is, me. What did I do wrong? But in the next two or three verses, we see that devotees explain at some places that now gradually his ego is taking over. And his object of blame starts to turn from inwards to outwards. So let's see what he says in the next verse.
This woman, my wife, has adopted a means that follows her nature, and therefore she is not to be blamed. But I am a man, therefore all condemnation upon me. I am not at all concerned with what is good for me, since I could not control my senses.
Right. So he is still staying with himself. The blame is on him, that he was aware of his wife's nature, because even previously when Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were born, he knew his wife was lusty. She kind of, she pushed him to have union in the evening time, which is an inauspicious time. And even though he did not want to do it, she kind of forced him to have that union, which led to the birth of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, two demons, because of that inauspicious time. So Kashyapa Muni over time was aware that, of her nature, of her qualities, her desires, but yet he fell victim to her sweet behavior because he was looking to enjoy himself. And so he is still introspective, but now he is also starting to see faults in his wife. Next.
A woman's face is as attractive and beautiful as a blossoming lotus flower during autumn. Her words are very sweet, and they give pleasure to the ear. But if we study a woman's heart, we can understand it to be extremely sharp, like the blade of a razor. In these circumstances, who could understand the dealings of a woman?
Now, his object of blame has turned completely outward instead of inward. First, he was completely blaming himself. Then he starts seeing faults in his wife. And now he is completely blaming his wife. He describes the bodily features of his wife and how she is attractive. And then says, he laments, who can understand the dealings? And in the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada writes, we therefore request all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, both men and women, not to be attracted by bodily features, but only to be attracted by Krishna. Then everything will be all right. Otherwise, there will be danger. Last verse. Translation 42.
To satisfy their own interests, women deal with men as if the men were the most dear to them, but no one is actually dear to them. Women are supposed to be very saintly, but for their own interests they can kill even their husbands, sons, or brothers, or cause them to be killed by others.
Can we read the purport to this verse?
A woman's nature has been partially well studied by Kasyapa Muni. Women are self-interested by nature, and therefore they should be protected by all means so that their natural inclination to be too self-interested will not be manifested. Women need to be protected by men. A woman should be cared for by her father in her childhood, by her husband in her youth, and by her grown sons in her old age. This is the injunction of Manu, who says that a woman should not be given independence at any stage. Women must be cared for so that they will not be free to manifest their natural tendency for gross selfishness. There have been many cases, even in the present day, in which women have killed their husbands to take advantage of their insurance policies. This is not a criticism of women, but a practical study of their nature. Such natural instincts of a woman or man are manifested only in the bodily conception of life. When either a man or a woman is advanced in spiritual consciousness, the bodily conception of life practically vanishes. We should see all women as spiritual units, aham brahmasmi, whose only duty is to satisfy Krishna. Then the influences of the different modes of material nature which result from one's possessing a material body will not act. The Krishna consciousness movement is so beneficial that it can be very easily counteract the contamination of material nature, which results from one's possessing a material body. Bhagavad Gita therefore teaches in the very beginning that whether one is a man or a woman, one must know that he or she is not the body but a spiritual soul. Everyone should be interested in the activities of the spiritual soul, not the body. As long as one is activated by the bodily conception of life, there is always the danger of being misled. Whether one is a man or a woman, The soul is sometimes described as Purusha, because whether one is dressed as a man or a woman, one is inclined to enjoy this material world. One who has the spirit of enjoyment is described as Purusha. Whether one is a man or a woman, he is not interested in serving others. Everyone is interested in satisfying his or her own senses. Krishna consciousness, however, provides first-class training for a man or a woman. A man should be trained to be a first-class devotee of Lord Krishna, and a woman should be trained to be a very chaste follower of her husband. That will make the lives of both of them happy.
Beautiful. Prabhupada beautifully explains the whole concept. Can we scroll back to the translation? So now, having the entire context of how things unfolded, how the story unfolded, how Diti played an act for her desires, and then how Kashyapa felt cheated and hurt, and how his ego takes over and he puts the blame first on his wife and then on all women. So we understand from that context and that point of view that this verse is not a universal statement. This verse is not a shastric principle, but this is simply a person expressing his pain. And we also see that, Kashyapa Muni, what he's doing here is basically venting. The devotees explain he's venting and he's hurt and he's in pain and he's saying something. And how often do we see, even today, that when we are overcome with hate or with negative thoughts for someone, we very quickly include the whole group with them. That is what racism is all about, right? Is you don't like the behavior of a certain people or a certain few people that you meet, and then you say, oh, you people are like that. Your whole group is like that. So when a person is angry, when a person is spiteful, they very quickly expand the circle of blame from the person to the entire group. And that's what Kashyapa Muni is doing. From his wife, he expands that circle of blame to the entire group of women. Women are like that. But Prabhupada explains in the purport that that's not the case. We should look at women as spiritual entities who are just meant to serve Krishna. But if we are in the body conception of life, if we see each other as bodies meant for enjoyment, then we are bound to be hurt, we are bound to be cheated, and we are bound to receive pain and suffering. So this is how we can understand this whole story and this verse. I think you had a comment. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that it's kind of interesting because back in the third canto, when Kashyapa and Aditi were having that conversation because she wanted to conceive a child at that time, and he was saying, wait. And then in that section, he was speaking many very nice words that are totally the opposite of what he's saying here. He's glorifying his wife and glorifying women, saying that one can cross over the ocean with seagoing vessels in the same way that one can cross over the dangerous situation of material ocean by living with a wife. O respectful one, a wife is so helpful that she's called the better half of the man's body because of her sharing in all auspicious activities. A man can move without anxiety and trusting responsibilities to his wife. As a fort commander very easily conquers invading plunderers, by taking shelter of a wife, one can conquer the senses which are unconquerable in the other social orders. And one more. O queen of the home, we are not able to act like you, nor could we repay you for what you have done, even if we worked for our entire life or even after death. To repay you is not possible, even for those who are admirers of personal qualities. So I really liked what you said, Narottam, because what we're seeing is he's just, he's saying one thing in one situation, he's saying the total opposite in the other situation. So it's clear that this is not like Siddhanta, this is not like Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta here. This is just a person who's not even like, a pure devotee. Kashyapa Muni, he's like a mystic yogi kind of person. And he's struggling. He's like having a hard time controlling his senses, and he's trying to take responsibility, but he's not able to take full responsibility So he's using flattery in one part, he's using, condemnation in another part, and he's just really trying to navigate difficult situations in his relationships, in the best way that he knows how. Okay, Mother Kunti's going to pounce on me if I don't give up the mic.
No, yes, thank you for bringing that.
Extremely important for everyone here to understand. Go back to verse 6:18:39 and look at the very first sentence. Kasyapa Muni thought. This wasn't a verbal abuse session for his wife. Let's understand that. He's doing internal thinking here. So it doesn't give carte blanche for every holier-than-thou woman or man to use verbal abuse. So that's not what's going on here. He's actually using thought. He's using his thoughts, not the words.
It's a very important point.
Okay. I'm just kind of worried here.
He's not saying that out loud.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's the team.
Just on Mother Kunti's point, a small comment is that, it's so interesting how our thoughts are very powerful and how Kashyapa Muni's thoughts have been engraved in history for thousands of years. It shows that we should be careful what we think, in a sense. I was curious, Prabhupada Priya had mentioned that when Kashyapa Muni was previously flattering his wife and saying certain things, I recall in the purport, Srila Prabhupada was backing up his statements with yes, this is the function of a wife, is they protect the husband and they allow the husband to cross over material ocean. And similarly here, it seems that Srila Prabhupada's first sentence, he says, Kashyapa Muni has accurately described, or can you scroll down just a little bit, Nagopi? It has been particularly well studied by Kashyapa Muni. So I understand that things aren't black and white, and Srila Prabhupada is accepting truth from both perspectives, but maybe you could shed a little light on it. Because we're saying here that, this is just his venting. But then I do feel like Srila Prabhupada is putting a bit of an emphasis, in a sense.
Yes, Srila Prabhupada acknowledges, can we scroll now? Srila Prabhupada acknowledges that a woman's nature has been particularly well studied by Kashyapa Muni. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all his words, exaggerated words in this translation, are all Siddhanta. Srila Prabhupada acknowledges that what Kashyapa Muni is feeling is in some ways valid, because there is certain psychophysical qualities of men and then of women which which are not the which are not the best, right? Not the best versions of themselves. And so it is said that scriptures say, and then the acharyas say that women can by nature be a little more inclined towards material enjoyment, right? That is just an established, what they say, this is a general fact. Obviously we see there are many women who may not be like that, but that's a general fact. You say humans have 2 legs, 2 hands. Some humans are born without hands, without legs. But that's a general understanding. So a general understanding, they say that women can have more inclination towards material enjoyment, sense enjoyment, and towards attachment. And then men in that regard can have so little more inclination towards renunciation. And that's why Srila Prabhupada ends by writing that the man should be a perfect devotee of Krishna. And the woman, because she is bound to be attached, if she must be attached to someone, let her be attached to this devotee of Krishna and serve him for her benefit. But if he also writes previously in a verse that if both are Krishna conscious, then it should be mutual cooperation. Then he does not state that there has to be one-sided service. So that's how Srila Prabhupada is acknowledging that, yes, from the bodily conception of life, and he further explains what he means in the purport. He says that if we are deeply stuck in the bodily conception of life in our core natures, then there is not much hope. Then yes, there are parts of us which can be harmful for the relationship. But and that's why he is time and again encouraging us to not be stuck on the bodily platform, but to rise and then view your partner not as a body for enjoyment, but as a servant of Krishna that you should serve. That's my understanding. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That was it was a nice way that you summarized it. I also thought Srila Prabhupada, his intention here is to say that they should be protected. It's not in a sense like to put down, but to say they should be protected. And similarly, we saw that Kashyapa Muni said that the husband is protected by the wife, because the husband will be inclined in a certain way, in sense gratification or something, and the wife will kind of ground him. The wife will make him more centered, more stable or something like that. So I guess interestingly, it seems like they're both protecting each other in a healthy dynamic.
Yeah, there are statements time and again in scriptures. For men, so many stories are there about men falling in lust. Great men, great advanced spiritual men falling for, sexual enjoyment so easily. Right. King Dasharatha also ended up making a promise to his wife. So we see time and again, but these statements are not to put down anyone, men or women. These statements are meant to make us humble that, okay, this is what our nature can be, and so we need support from our partner, and we need to rise above the bodily conception. Strive towards that. Yes, Prabhu. I think Gokulanand Prabhu and then.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for a deep insight on this subject. There are two comments I would like to make. First one about, I was thinking of Diti. Diti was, although mad, at the death of her sons, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, but interestingly, she never blamed Lord Vishnu. That means she understands the position of Lord Vishnu, and she has high regards and respect. So she didn't directly, say that my sons were killed by Lord Vishnu. So she had some venting about Indra, not directly to Lord Vishnu. That was interesting to note. And I humbly beg to differ from what was said here. Kashyapa is not just a yogi. He is father of Vamandev. He is one of the Saptarshis, and they're all great devotees. He may not be Mahabhagavat, okay, but we know, right, there are various stages of devotees. So he's not just a yogi. That's the comment I wanted to make.
Right.
No, Kashyapa Muni is a pivotal person in the Bhagavatam. Also in one purport, specifically Srila Prabhupada said, and you probably know which one it is, it's either 40 or 39, DT was envious. So that's hard. That's really hard. If somebody has anger, that's one thing, but when you're envious, that's like anger with, what is it, steroids. So yeah, it's very sick. It's unhealthy.
Yeah.
So
Thank
you. Wanted to say that.
Thank you. Ratna Gopi.
Hare Krishna. So when things like women's nature are discussed, oftentimes being in a woman's body, we can feel a little upset. But I've realized that it's to empower us, because the nature of the body is not the nature of the soul. So it's speaking of a woman's nature, and our real identity is a spirit soul. And in life, a man can protect a woman, helping curb their inclination towards self-interest. But when we can engage in devotional service also, and ask for protection from the Supreme Lord from these lower inclinations, like when we're chanting our japa, it's please engage me in your transcendental service. And This is to help us rise above the modes of nature. Then we can also try to dovetail everything in, well, how can this please Krishna? And always staying aware with this very empowered knowledge of this is what the lower modes of nature are like. This is what a woman's body's nature can be like. Let me stay always aware of this so that I can be engaged properly and be most pleasing to Krishna.
Yeah, amazing. I love that statement that the nature of the body is not the nature of the soul. It's very true. Very true. Thank you. Yes, please. I think.
I have so many questions, but I will shorten. Yeah, okay, so...
How long do we have? Okay.
All right, so I have here some notes, and there are questions in them, but they they go together in the thought process that I had, and so it's not so much where I'm stopping at that question and going, please answer me. Mm-hmm. It's more like this is the thought process of me learning in class, if mm-hmm. that helps. And mm-hmm. then if you could give me your thoughts after, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. So... if one is given the opportunity to worship Krishna through worshiping a husband, is this expected from the husband and society? If so, why are we assuming that souls that happen to be in women's bodies at the time automatically do not have a personal connection with Krishna and are unable to worship him and therefore need husbands for spiritual liberation? This idea seems most to actually cause lust in souls currently in the bodies of men, as they learn to expect a wife and expect to be worshipped as God, which actually makes men more inclined to expect material enjoyment. The idea of partners worshiping each other serving Krishna is good for soul's advancement, of course. But if we are only describing the inherent natures of the body that we can rise above through Krishna, then why are we always talking about women's bodies? Where are the descriptions of all the character defects of the bodies of men? I'm hearing that he lamented objectifying his wife and blamed himself, and that he was venting. He had a hard time, and it was in his own head, and I understand that. But the part that I'm kind of going with is, like Drishta said, that Prabhupada's also taking that and making it like, okay, so this is true. Like this is how souls that are in women's bodies, this is how they naturally are inclined to act, as manipulative and like untrustworthy. So Prabhupada says these assumed inherent character defects are mute when one enters Krishna consciousness, and I understand the hateful comments about all women were made by one soul feeling betrayed and in a place of pain. But those hateful comments about women are not how we should perceive women at all, and I understand that that is a shared concept among everyone here. Yet there is still the assumption that devotee women can only worship Krishna through worshiping a husband. In one situation, this devotee praised his wife in full love form verbally. This is the part I found very interesting that I really actually enjoyed. In one situation, this devotee praised his wife in full due form verbally, but when he feels betrayed, he vents in his mind. He keeps it to himself. He does not verbally abuse her. And I thought that was really good and interesting. And so we're saying... So Prabhupada is taking his venting anger and using it to describe the nature of all women, and that women have more inclination to material attachment. This is just taken as fact. Why? What is the actual reason we believe women, like souls in the bodies of women, can only worship Krishna through their husbands and have such a inclination towards material attachment? Because I have heard this question asked many times, and the answers that I always hear is, well, it's just a known fact. Like, this is just what everyone knows about women, and that's what we know, and that's what I understand. And I don't actually hear the real reason, like, why do we believe this about souls that are in the bodies of women? And why don't we talk more about character defects that are so, like, actually inclined from souls that are in the bodies of men? Because we all know that men so often struggle with lust. We all know that actually as a fact. And so that's my thought. It just doesn't match. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Um, mm-hmm. Hmm. So can you? Right. No, yeah, sure. It's few things, right? From what I can remember, from what you said, well, firstly, it's not simply a believed fact about the nature of men and women that we discussed. Obviously, we don't have, from modern point of view, we don't have statistics or data, or at least I am not aware if there are any studies out there which studies the nature of men and women, which can further prove the scriptural statements. But these are statements which you can certainly, if you objectively observe, you can arrive at certain conclusions about the nature of men and women in general. Obviously, there are many, many exceptions which can be found, but in general, we can see there's through many stories in scriptures and through life around. And many men and many women actually come out and acknowledge their struggles, which are at par with what the scriptures describe. There are groups, and then they share with their friends, their peers, mentors, spiritual masters. One female friend of mine, actually, we were speaking in a small group, and then she said that I cannot agree more that women need to be protected at all stages in life. She had that realization somehow. So these are not just things that we take at face value, but these are based on deep observations and analysis of the nature of just the body, which the sages have observed and which can be applied and understood. Did you want to say something about this? Oh, yes, please.
It's Kali Yuga, and no, we're not always going to have a qualified husband.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always going to happen. Neither are we going to have children to take care of us. Even a daughter, a qualified daughter, to help take care of a woman. So yes, protection at every stage, but the other aspect is that the wife is a fortress for the husband. That's the other thing, that she keeps his senses in check,
100%.
but with love and kindness.
100%.
And Krishna consciousness is the bottom line. So my humble request here is that we avoid sexism.
Yeah.
And because I don't think Srila Prabhupada has any interest in sexism or being anyone who's a sexist. And no, we don't want misogynists, and we don't want man-haters either. We want them to purge that anartha through Krishna consciousness with love and devotion to Guru and Krishna. And the bottom line, the spiritual master is there.
Yeah.
Vani and Vapu.
Yeah.
So, yes, there are many qualified women in this movement. You and I could probably name 55 right now, but we're going to go honor prasadam.
Yeah.
And we'll meditate on them.
Right.
Jai.
No, yeah. And I just wanted to also say that that's a beautiful point that she mentioned about the woman being a fortress. Because in many times we see how when the men are failing, the wife is actually protecting the man and protecting his principles and his life, and actually protects him from going astray into a wrong path. So a man also finds protection in a wife for his own growth and well-being. I think Gokulan Prabhu and then Ratna Gopi. Or we can go first.
So just really quick for direct responses to Daniel's great question. it doesn't say that we can only worship Krishna through our husband. To my knowledge, I never saw the word only, just that it's a great opportunity.
Right.
And then because we also see in the Bhagavad Gita, remembering those other scriptures, it's sometimes when we're so focused on the verse, we can get kind of locked into what this verse is saying, but we have to remember the grand context of all of the literature that's given to us. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna goes into a lot about just material nature in general. So any body is subject to that, including a man. And that talks a lot about how we're, driven by lust so much of the world. So that's absolutely acknowledged in the Sastra.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the scriptures go into the nature of women, because so much of our the fact that we're stuck in the material world is because of sex desire in some capacity. So if this literature is meant to liberate us, hammering these points helps a lot. Hammering down the nature of women helps a woman be empowered by this knowledge, and helps a man be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't lead my whole life trying to get a woman, because there are these truths in reality, So, Hare Krishna.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Important. Yeah, three things. We have to consider the Vedic test, I always say, as per time, place, situation, and the character, the personality. It is never black or white, okay? And time, the time that we are living in is totally different. So many things may not directly apply in this particular day and age. Number one.